But when it comes down to it, 1-0. We see Obey take the lead right now. Cringe Crew, how do they turn this one around? We mentioned some of the mistakes that we saw in game number 1, lack of Odin in general, a little bit of complex strategy, and just kind of forgetting what the guys from Obey can really bring to the table. How can we see that turn around?
I think that their strategy of banning out the Ao Kuang Naja, then first picking the Hun Bats, hasn't been really working out for them. They did that in game number 1 against Energy. Clearly didn't work. Second game as well, unfortunately. So I think they need to rely on more of this Guardian pick strategy coming from the jungle maybe even as well. Now granted, they're not going to have the Athena, but maybe they have something else, because we saw Sherio actually coming in from Group A, where he was able to bring out so many different Guardian junglers. Maybe they take the Ymir earlier on, taking it away from Variety and putting it on Repi.
Well, that's something that Repikas can play. We know he's got the Athena, but what else is in that wheelhouse, Hazer?
I don't think I've ever seen him play Ymir jungle, but, you know, it's not that complex a gold. I think he could pull it off. He's mechanically skilled enough to manage that. I think the big mistake they made that game is they banned out Twig. You know what they did? They took Twig's junglers and they were like, you can't have this, you can't have that. And he said, I don't care. I'm going to take Nemesis. I'm going to do work. I'm going to nem-ult people. I can't miss that. No problem.
I mean, Nemesis, again, this is just sort of an oversight in my eyes. Nemesis, one of CaptainTwig's original go-to gods, and the Ymir, one of Variety's absolute dominating picks when he wants to win in this recent fall split. So for Cringe Crew, like I said, I think they kind of overthought this matchup. They had the Osiris pocket pick. They went to the Amaterasu support, but when it came down to the obvious, Cringe Crew unfortunately just sort of dropped the ball there. Going on to game number 2, we've already discussed some of the changes they could make as we head into picks and bans. Hopefully see that turnaround. Cringe Crew are on the losing side of things, which means they are able to select if they are first pick or second pick. When we saw them in the first match against Energy, they opted for the second pick. Why don't we dissect that a little bit, Anatoly, Hazer? Actually, 2 great coaches, because when it comes down to this is more the nitty-gritty. Why would a team prefer to go second pick over first?
I think it's nothing to do with the sides, in all honesty. I think it's all to do with draft strategy. I mean, if you want to let certain things through, if you want to ban, if you don't think that they can pick something first that will terrify you, I think you're always better going for the second pick. If there's nothing you're scared of, second pick allows you to get a combo with those 2 picks at once, get 2 really strong picks off the table, and allows you to kind of dictate how the game's going to go.
And you have the last pick strategy for Cringe for the second pick, right? And we saw in the first game, Obey recognized the weakness of the strategy of the comp from Cringe Crew. They didn't have many escape over the wall, so they last picked the Ymir. Not only is Variety comfortable on it, it's just a huge counter pick towards 3 of the gods. So electing to save that last pick could find maybe a whole exploitation in the first pick.
Well, our bans are out. Athena banned away from Cringe Crew. I think that's absolutely necessary, as is Terra. EmilZy has certainly shown his prowess on this character in the recent online stage of the fall split. Ra, taken away from Obey Alliance. PrettyPriMe pretty much showed us that you can't allow him to play that one. And the Hun Bats ban by Cringe Crew. Just a certain... it's curious to see that ban come out.
It's interesting. I think Twig is known for his bats. That might be another shot at Twig, despite seeing how well he just did on that Nemesis. And we see Ataraxia also did very well last game on the Jingwei. Somewhat of a speciality of his, and he picks that up, locks that in first time instantly on both sides.
Yeah, you know, I'm kind of curious. I think this Hun Bats ban could have been a Jingwei ban, or even possibly another look towards PrettyPriMe. The Hun Bats is an interesting ban to be sure. Option over to Cringe Crew. They've got 2 choices here. What do you think they go to combat the Jingwei?
Sometimes you have to pick your poison, leaving Jingwei open. Maybe this is a strategy Cringe Crew left open on purpose. They could pick up a Willish trying to pull Jingwei during her own knockup. Maybe they can even synergize that with a Sobek. But instead, it seems that we're going to have a lot of wombo combo between this Naja Scylla. Formerly, when Kero was on a team with Cherio, back in London Conspiracy, they used to run this composition all the time.
Absolutely, this is one that really, you know, came to fruition earlier. Even Obey Alliance, I think, was one of the first teams to really start in the spring split to start this sort of 1-2 punch of the junglers set up for the mid lane, coming out of a meta from a long time ago. So Cringe Crew adapted that, like you said, with Cherio, and now transitioning over to new jungler Repikas, who also has a strong Naja. Kero has a very strong Scylla. We're playing on 319, fantastic buffs. I think this is an excellent 1-2 punch for Cringe Crew, but that allows Obey Alliance to select Fafnir and Raijin.
Yeah, I think this is the first time we've seen Naja open so far, actually, in this tournament, which is interesting. I don't think we've seen Naja receive as many bans as as he has this weekend.
Right.
But we see the Fafnir and the Raijin pick up. Fafnir again, looking very strong so far this tournament. Has Fafnir lost a game yet? I'm not sure.
Not quite yet. No.
And Raijin picked up. We saw Yaman on that previously, but this is the second appearance we've seen of Raijin. And we'll see just what Prime can do on it.
Well, Raijin has actually been met with some criticism. One of our casters here, mid lane extraordinaire Aggro, was actually discussing and dissecting Raijin and sort of his shortcomings, really, in the recent changes, or maybe just independent of them.
We saw Raijin being played by Yaman in game number 2 against Cringe Crew, and the issue there was that Cringe Crew ran a tank composition, so it didn't really work out for him. Some of the nerfs to Raijin's kit significantly lowering his damage, but now with Cringe Crew's comp off of the Scylla and the Naja, you're now looking at the Athena jungle this time around coming out of Repikas, so you could potentially find some easy kills against this mid jungle.
Should be an interesting look, to say the least. Cringe Crew banned out Variety in their second round. No Ymir, very important one, and no Zhang Kui. We have yet to see it, but apparently Cringe Crew are very scared of it. This is the second game in a row that they've been. Hazel, you're grinning like a kid in a candy store. Why are you so happy about this Zhang Kui?
Oh, I'm not grinning. I'm laughing. I don't get it. What's going on, man? I must have missed something, you know? Zhang being banned when Nem's still open. They don't have their jungler yet. They've picked up an Erlang. I guess that Erlang's going to the solo lane, and maybe they think the Erlang has a bad matchup against Zhong. I'm not sure. But I really don't see this Zhong ban. They must have been, yeah, you know, part of some info that I've not got yet.
Snap pick Cupid. This god has recently seen some changes. In general, Cupid has never been that bad of a god, to be honest with you. Just under-selected. Cringe Crew going to be selected by Shaggyshenk, who, even before some of the changes to Cupid, Shaggy was one of the guys to really bring him sort of out of the underground. Why do you think Cupid's selected here, Tolly?
I think that they're trying to get a lot of early pressure in every single stage. This Naja is going to be aggressive, and you want to be able to maybe find an early aggressive pick, whether it's going to be in the solo lane or in the duel. This Erlang Shen could be jungle. Actually, it's going to be the Naja jungle, never mind. But Erlang Shen could be support, so there could be a lot of pressure. We saw Ataraxia last game, so Cringe Crew, they're looking to play maybe very aggressive yet again in the dueling.
Yeah, you know, the Erlang Shen support, something that we saw Aurora do, and that wasn't really surprising. Aurora made a name for himself playing literally Fenrir support. But again, going back to what we said in game number 1, Hazer, EmilZy really known as this sort of like life guardian support rather than aggressive. But being that he played Amy or Amaterasu in the first game, I think Erlang Shen certainly a possibility.
Yeah, I think it definitely could go over there. Provide a bit of sap. Can force beads, I think, is the big thing out of Erlang here. But we do see the Geb, so that's EmilZy going back to his defensive roots. I think an interesting thing about the Cupid pick here is we've seen a lot of tier out of Variety throughout the online stages, and perhaps that was a shot at him, stopping him picking that tier, because tier is, against cripples, pretty useless.
Yeah, no, I think that's a big point. I think you kind of phrased it in a way that's sort of, I'm going to throw this one out there, but I think that's a very accurate statement. Cupid certainly deterred the tier selection. Instead, we'll see the solo Sobek come out, and CaptainTwig on the Thor for Obey Alliance. Now, CaptainTwig has come a long way. I think that CaptainTwig took a while to learn the jungle and sort of warm up, and even then when he sort of got it, didn't really vibe well with the guys on Fnatic. Now with Obey Alliance, then known as Hunger for More, we saw him improve and improve. But one thing, and maybe I'm being too harsh, I never really have seen CaptainTwig's Thor really show up.
We haven't even seen him play it that often already in the online phase, only picking it once so far out of his 7 different sets. So this is something that he's not normally used to playing on the big stage, but it's definitely something that he's been practicing. And with this team composition, it's pretty solid in terms of you have the initiation with the Sobek, you also have a nice decent peeling in the Coerce to synergize with Ataraxia on the Jing way. So as long as you control the early stages of the 2v2 between Raijin and Thor, between the Tectonic Rift and the Raijin getting the late damage, and you separate the distance away from the Naja, that's the goal, I think, for CaptainTwig here.
And even speaking about the Naja, something that I really like about Obey's composition that I don't think was #1 in their minds, but certainly a nice side effect, every single one of these characters has a crowd control immune ultimate. So if Naja comes into lane at the wrong time, you can just hit 4, and that should protect you.
But the problem is that from Cringe Crew's composition, with the exception of Scylla, they can't really get over that Thor wall. So this could be a good deterrent as well. With the Ymir being banned, CaptainTwig serves 2 purposes. The early pressure with the Raijin trying to shut down Scylla, as well as denying any sort of escape. The Naja, also, you can deny the ultimate. You can maybe intercept it in the middle.
Should work out pretty well. I'm loving the Naja choice. Like we said, this is more of a comfort pick, more for the mid laner, Kero. The Scylla versus the Raijin matchup. This is something that we have seen a lot of lately. Raijin sort of coming down from his recent huge burst in popularity. He's been #1, and now he's kind of coasting. And Scylla, the opposite, wasn't really picked, and now rising to fame. How does this matchup really work out, Hazer?
I would say it's a good matchup for both. I mean, it depends on how it gets played. The big thing about Scylla into Raijin is when Raijin uses his ultimate, he's kind of rooted there. He's kind of a free target for those huge I'm a monster burst damage to come off and pick up free kills. But on the other hand, Raijin, you know, with the amount of damage that he can put out, Scylla's relatively low base HP, can allow her to get bursted down really, really quickly by a Raijin in particular. So the matchup is an interesting one. I would personally put it slightly in favor of the Scylla, but it's close for sure.
Yeah, you know, especially with the setup, both mid laners have nice setup out of the jungle, right? You've got Naja for Scylla and then Thor for Raijin, of course. But what happens when the solo lanes rotate, right? Sobek is going to be Mr. Setup Man, but Erlang Shen with the root cripple. I think that's one of your favorite abilities as of late, Tully. The pin coming out of Erlang Shen. You've spoken so much about it. How much of an impact is Erlang going to make in this game?
It's such a very impactful ability because you don't have to overcommit to getting that off. You can throw it out from a distance very safely, and that sets up your team so beautifully because people underestimate roots and cripples. Now, it's not the hard CC like a taunt or a stun or anything like that, but it could still do a lot of damage, specifically with any mid-mage that has a lot of burst. And it has a relatively short cooldown, around 14 or 15 seconds or so you can constantly keep sieging twice every single minion wave in mid also.
So right now, Obey are leading this series 1-0. Cringe Crew already have a point as they split with Energy, so the only points on the overall board are basically Cringe Crew and Energy. Cringe Crew technically have a point right now, but Cringe Crew don't have a point. They're trying to find their own here against Obey Alliance. Where do you think these teams are gonna wind up overall? Obey certainly has a chance to snatch 3 away, but do you think that Cringe Crew are gonna stop them right here?
I think that we could see a 2-0 of Obey here. I think their draft for this game is slightly better. I love the Thor here. I think that wall, as Totally touched on, is really an incredible tool. They used the Ymir wall so well last game. I wonder if they'll be able to do it again with the Thor with Twig controlling the game this time. But yeah, I just prefer the Obey draft this game. But last time I did predict Energy to 2-0 Cringe Crew, so might see another comeback from them.
How about you, Tully? Where do you think this one's coming?
I think this is going to be all momentum-based for Cringe Crew. It's going to be very impactful how Repikas with the Naja is going to set up Kero, whether it's going to be the ulti just straight up, or if it's just going to be the sash into the crush and then the disengage. There's a lot of potential, I think, for Cringe Crew to snowball off of their early game. So whoever between these two teams initiates first should be able to win it out.
For sure. So apologies for the moment. We got a brief little hold up, but we should start the game in a matter of moments. As far as we're concerned, I'm still interested in this Cupid right here. I mean, this is something that I actually really like this god. I think he's severely underrepresented. Why do you think that Cupid just hasn't been picked as much?
I think Cupid is a situational pick. I think in terms of solo kill potential, he has a little bit, but in these top level games, I don't think people are going to be getting soloed by Cupid. So what you're really looking at him for is that AoE cripple, that huge cripple that allows you to, you know, you can burst a Guardian down inside that cripple, you can prevent a character like Tyr doing anything inside that cripple. It's just a limiting factor for the other team, really. So it brings you a bit more utility out of that ADC role, along with the healing as well, which I think is a bit understated with the recent Cupid buffs. One
thing that I also really like about Cupid is his objective control. We talk all the time about how Isis brings the circle of protection. We even mentioned Zeus's Thunderstorm when it comes to objective control, but Field to Love is gigantic. I mean, it's the size of the CS Tower, and it's just going to sit underneath that Gold Fury. If you walk in, you're getting crippled, you're getting hurt, a bunch of damage, and possibly stunned. So that whole just combination there makes Cupid very strong when it comes to objective secure. You combine that with the Scylla. I think that when it comes down to it, Cringe Crew could be looking for a lot of these mid-game golds.
Not only about objectives around mid or the Gold Fury, I think in the 1v1 scenario, Shaggyshenk is probably looking to play aggressive once the Guardians start rotating away against Ataraxia, who's known to kind of just sit back and farm a little bit. So if you can trade out ultimates and you force Ataraxia to use that ultimate, maybe you can find a gank later on. Repikas should be able to kind of camp that duel lane, maybe shut down Ataraxia, because we saw his late game damage was just off the charts.
But see, you say that late game, Cringe Crew, they're certainly tilted in that direction. Cupid, more of he hits a stride towards the mid game, I would say. I don't necessarily know if he falls off. Heart Bomb still hits for a zillion damage towards the end of it, to be honest with you. But really when it comes down to, I'm looking at the Scylla and some of the choices there. Cringe Crew, they've got a pretty late game composition, whereas Obey across the way, they've got the Jing and the Raijin. Should this game go to 30 minutes, who do you think has the lead?
I would say Obey in this case. I think Ataraxia on that Jing, he's proven himself a late game monster on that character. With the crits in her kit, with the Fafnir to buffer, I think that's going to be the biggest factor in the late game for these teams. Over on the other side, you do have that Scylla Najai combo, always able to make a fight, 5v4 for Cringe Crew as soon as you just take somebody out. But I think Obey will be too smart to allow that to happen, and will force Cringe Crew out of these fights.
I think a lot of this matchup, honestly, and maybe I'll just focus on it because I like the pick, but I think a lot of this matchup is going to focus around this Cupid. Is this Cupid a awesome pocket pick that will change the course of the game, specifically the mid game, or is it just a throwaway pick that Obey Alliance are going to be able to take advantage of? We've spoken a lot about the positives that Cupid bring to the table. I really like the objective control and the sustain. I'm not really going to mention it, but we'll just shout it out real quick. What are some of the shortcomings of Cupid, and why don't we see him chosen so much?
Well, the fact that he has a dash instead of a jump is a little bit hurtful. He doesn't have any CC immunity in his ultimate form either, whereas Jingwei does. Jingwei also has the global pressure with her passive, being able to get every single wave, get one little item for a power spike, rotate the bag harpies, get more farm. But so that's why Cupid is not seen as much, because the meta for hunters has been more transitioned around trying to farm and look for your opportunities instead of going for the 1v1s.
Yeah, when it comes down to it, just a little bit more powerful than some of the other selections. But ladies and gentlemen, guess what? We're going to finally bring you the game. Obey Alliance versus Cringe Crew, game number 2. We've discussed all the picks and bans. Let's take it right to the game. It's Hindu and Aggro on the mic.
Thanks so much, Tom. It wouldn't be a big matchup if we didn't have a small delay just to make it more worthwhile going forward. Now, they talked a lot about picks and bans there, and one thing Hazer said to me, Aggro, was to do with the cripple and the tear. They've banned the Ymir, they banned the Zhonghui, and they went, do you know what? We're going to pick a lot of cripple here, and if you want to pick tear, you can do, but if you got anything else you're going to run here? And he pulls out the Sobek.
Exactly. So not only that AoE cripple from the Cupid kind of dissuading that tier pick like you mentioned, but Erlang with that easy to confirm cripple in the lane really shuts down the fearless clear from tier as well.
Then this Geb with a knock up all the shield that'll block the Fearless as well. Then you've got Sash from Repikas. This all seems crafted for the most part to shut down variety in the solo lane. At the same time as bring back the old school El Clasico in the jungle, Repikas on the Najar with the Scylla mid lane. This is London Conspiracy. This is now Cringe Crew. Both these teams had the same sort of core members, and they're going for the same sort of draft we saw last year.
And I love it. I love the Scylla pick into Raijin. We heard Hazer talk about that sort of matchup, but for me, that is definitely in Scylla's favor overall. Not only, you don't even need the I'm a Monster to kill Raijin in the ultimate. Having that crush alone is going to put him low enough that he's probably going to have to retreat overall. But and like he mentioned, if it's in the late game, it's in the mid to late game, he's about 3/4 HP, goes up into the Taiko drums. I'm a Monster is going to gobble him up entirely, getting that free reset, not only giving you that reset, but just taking away that damage from Taiko drums turns a fight instantly into Cringe Crew's favor.
Now remember as well, this is the latest patch they're playing on Boys and Girls at Home. This is the one you can play yourselves right now. And with that, that's why you're seeing Scylla back a little bit more, a bit of an increase to the crush. At the same time is why we don't see any more Susano all of a sudden as well.
Yeah, the Susano not going to be as popular now, not being able to instantly knock you up with that ultimate. He has to let it charge, as well as the slowing down the damage on the Stormkata, the first part of Stormkata at least, makes him a little bit less appetizing as the jungle pick.
Interesting start there. You saw CaptainTwig not happy about taking the trade that those right and Harpies there. Did get swung round on by Zyrhoes on the Erlang Shen as well. So Cringe Crew get the Fire Elementals and the right Harpies, and poor old Obey, they're going to have to just take the left see if they can get them in time.
So that means Zyrhoes is going to hit level 3 before Variety, and that's going to make that lane even better for Erlang Shen. Erlang is the premier bully in the solo lane right now, probably even on top of characters like Osiris or Robin. So you're able to really push out this Sobek that's not going to be able to compete with your clear or your poke damage.
Well, we saw the issue that Cringe Crew had in game 1 is just also aggression from PANDALIKE there, but the aggression early on from Cringe Crew in game 1. They didn't have any lane pressure in any of their lanes whatsoever. They were all negative lanes. This time round, you can see Zyrhoes has the lane pressure in solo lane here. Mid lane, I think that's about even between the two. And then left-hand side, I'm not sure which way that's going to go.
The pressure is in Nobe's favor overall in the mid lane. I would say the clear from Raijin going to outclass even the buffed Crush from Kero in the early game. But once Kero is able to max that Crush, he's going to be able to insta-clear the wave, basically. So it's not going to. It's basically going to be a wash
What about
in
the
the middle
left-hand
lane as
side
well.
then on the duo?
On the left-hand side, it's basically dependent on if Shaggyshenk wants to use that Heart Bomb for poke damage or if he wants to use it for clear. And it's whoever's able to play aggressive. Both of these hunters want to be up in the lane, auto-attack the wave before they meet together in the middle, because then your main clear ability, Heart Bomb for Cupid, or Persistent Gust for Jing, as long as you get, I think it's 3 or 4 auto-attacks before the waves meet, you can hit the entire wave with it. So whoever's able to get the advantage in poke and then push up and play aggressive and stack up that minion wave for their clear is going to have the advantage there.
They've got the advantage right now. Surprisingly enough, they were up against a Wrath here as well, what PANDALIKE started with, but still lane pressure for the Cupid and Geb early on. It's a great situation for the Cupid to be in, really. Obviously, the changes to him, he's got a bit of a bigger aura in his heart bombs now, so he can hit more things more effectively. So you got to position yourself a little bit further back than you usually would, away from the wave. And his heart, his share the love, does not consume his passive anymore, but can still give a bigger effect of heals to his team.
Exactly, making it a little bit easier to maximize the potential out of that passive, being able to heal big numbers like you mentioned, as well as get the stun on Heart Bomb still. And another big change that isn't talked about quite as much is getting extra attack speed just as you level Flutter. Before, it was you had to use Flutter to get that extra attack speed, and using your only sort of disengage to get that extra attack speed on an objective or to chase a kill really put you, it was a big risk, big reward sort of situation. Now he gets it for free just by leveling the ability, so that makes his already strong mid game even stronger. However, it does mean that you've got a difficult choice whenever you want to level your abilities. Obviously, Heart Bomb and Fields of Love are the two most important ones, but overall, what do you want to level next? The sustain out of the hearts or the attack speed out of Flutter?
Well, you did see over on the right-hand side there, if you were eagle-eyed, there was a flying CaptainTwig on the Thor ganking the solo lane, but he wasn't able to find his target on Zyrhoes there. He did apply a bit of pressure to allow for Variety to go and get his blue buff there, but that's all they found out of it.
Opening up that blue buff is very important for Sobek. Not quite as mana intensive as, say, hold that thought, CaptainTwig going up into the sky from Repikas. ImAmonster is going to be waiting for him on the bottom.
Will delete him at the end of that just in time with the Crush Detonation Kero. One of the masters of the Crush ImAmonster combo to make sure both connect. The Purification not used by CaptainTwig there was actually on cooldown, and that just allowed a free pick. A fantastic play for First Blood.
And now EmilZy's going to eat some damage in the middle lane, but not quite enough from PrettyPriMe. We've heard, you know, Raijin was the big early game damage dealer during his prime in the middle lane, no pun intended, but right now, just not able to put out the same numbers.
Well, this is the start the Cringe Crew wanted. They got it in game 1 as well. They're back to it in game 2. Nice early lead. They also get the kill onto Scylla. Escalate her build a little bit quicker with that First Blood. Escalate her experience gain to get her those extra levels for even more damage and clear.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what you want to do with Scylla right now. And we saw that, like you mentioned, Cringe Crew were able to get out to a similar sort of start in game 1, getting the lead at least. But I like their potential in the late game much more with this composition than what they had in game 1. They had the Isis in the middle lane, obviously not as strong as Scylla in the later game. They did have the Freya instead of the Cupid, which favored the Freya in the late game, but it's this setup overall for the mid lane mage. The pin coming out of Zyrhoes is going to be huge, setting up Sickums, Crushes, ImAmonsters, you name it. Kero's going to hit it off of that long-range CC.
And all these cripples as well. Obviously, we talked about how much they were focused on Variety's God Pool here as well, by the looks of it, trying to force them into something different this time round. They did that, but they've also kind of shutting down the whole of Elbay's squad. All these gods have a form of escape that can be crippled down and shut down.
Very true. I mean, you're not going to be able to hammer away with Thor once you get crippled. You're not going to be able to use Thunder Crash if you're crippled. A lot of definite synergies overall throughout the draft.
Well, back to it again goes Twig, going up in the sky, but he sees the rotation coming from Cringe Crew. I love what EmilZy did there. Used his ult to roll in. He had immunity frames too, and Twig actually elected to not go there. He had to get over for the shields if required to keep Zyrhoes standing tall.
But it was both ultimates burned in the solo lane as well, so Zyrhoes has to use that Blessing ultimate to get some extra health in there. Ataraxia wants to go aggressive in this left-hand lane.
Aggressive? That's not something I've spoke too much about. But that was a good little poke. He chose the fight over the damage, so over the minion wave there. As in mid lane, Prime's in trouble.
He has to use the ultimate just for the CC immunity. Not only do you get your beads burned, but also your ult.
Right hand side, more aggression coming out, but everybody low on mana on the side of Obey. Bit of a wasted engagement, diving for Zyrhoes there. But go back to Ataraxia there, you know, he missed the whole wave, went aggressive on the Cupid instead. That's not something we usually see out of him. His own team says he cares too much about his KDA and farming. Nobody expects him to go aggressive in lane, and he just did.
In fact, his own team says, hold on, that teleport in on this speed buff. Variety is here, but so is the rest of Cringe Crew. Up into the sky goes him.
Monster Nisha will bring him down, and Variety's dead. The crush detonated it again. Zero's on the front side. They're going to force PANDALIKE out, who's quite low on mana, but talking about lower mana, so is EmilZy. So they're just going to go away, happy that they actually did manage to pick up the kill, but lose their speed buff.
That feels real bad if you're Variety, because not only do you use your teleport to get there, and then you do get the speed buff, but you don't pick up any kills, then you die, and now you've got to wait to respawn, and then you've got to walk back to lane, and you're missing a ton of farm right now, and that's all farm that Zyrhoes can really push ahead.
But Twig can push ahead now because of that too, because he's going to get all that farm for himself instead, so at least he doesn't go to full waste, although, you know, punching 2 waves by the looks of it here, potentially, at least 1 and a bit, because he will get back in time for some of those minions.
But he also missed a wave by teleporting into that initial engagement as well, so Sobek's one of those gods, exactly, Sobek's one of those gods in the solo lane that needs to just play very passive. You aren't there to be a character like Raven or like Erlang, who's going to rotate in early in these fights and make a big difference. You are the big, tanky, I'm going to annoy you as much as humanly possible sort of solo laner. So he needs that farm to be able to get those levels and items that will allow him to be basically invincible.
Well, you mentioned Erlang. Zyrhoes here yet again going for the Stone of Gaia by the looks of it. He's not changed up his build at all. I thought it might have been down to Nemesis and the protections, but he seems to like the regeneration and the health instead.
Sometimes when players make the sort of switch into a new lane, they see items differently than people who have been there forever. You know, hey, why doesn't anyone build this? It feels really, really good to play with, and it's the normal solo laners who've been playing with other stuff forever.
Oh, PANDALIKE did a good little juke around there to avoid it, but he's going to eat a crush for his discretions there. Look to turn some of the damage around to Kero, but at the end of the day, PANDALIKE used his ultimate and ate dust.
I just don't understand why he was there. Why was he on bottom right mids? There was no. You can just stay underneath tier 1 tower and chill. Just let the minions come in. You're losing pressure in the early game right now, and while that stinks and isn't great for your overall game plan, it's not a terrible thing.
Hello, Shaggy flanking around the back, meets Ataraxia, misses the heart bomb, decides to disengage off the back of it because he realized he can't take the trade anymore.
No, and you see Shaggyshenk go for this transcendence sort of build. Cupid is another one of those gods. Not only do you have a lot of discrepancies in the item leveling order, or the ability leveling order, the item builds are always different for Cupid as well. Some will go the traditional hunter, wanting to go for the Devo gloves or boots into Ichaival to let you box better. But Shaggyshenk going for the power build, and it's because of the amazing scaling on Heart Bomb and Fields of Love. I mean, the damage is absolutely crazy, plus you get extra healing because it goes off of your physical power.
Well, there's a pluck on EmilZy in mid lane who has knock-up available, but the wall's going to come out. Drums of War 2, a lot invested into him, but not a lot of damage coming out. PrettyPriMe did not find his mark again. Pretty of a rinse-repeat from last game. And Variety going to take a lot of free pokes there as well. Meanwhile, right-hand side, speed buff is getting done.
Shell putting in work there for EmilZy, popping it at the perfect time and not taking any damage, like you mentioned. And we saw how long Variety was standing still from the Sikkim combo into the root, because remember, roots do not get diminishing returns. You're going to stand there for as long as a tooltip says you're going to stand there.
And now it's an invasion on the left-hand side potentially here. Unfortunately, the red buff not available for Cringe Crew to look to take. Instead, they'll fall back to farming. Shaggy going to trade with Ataraxia again, who once again pressured out and going to lose his balls on the left-hand side, but he does have a rotation from his team coming.
Not used to seeing this much pressure out of a composition kind of built around a Scylla, but Cringe Crew playing it very, very well right now, sitting up about 1,000 gold, a little closer to bit to 900, and you look at the experience difference across the board, favoring Cringe Crew on the right-hand side, but PrettyPriMe has been doing a better job than Kero of making sure he's getting waves alone. You've seen Repikas be in almost every middle wave, along with EmilZy, whereas CaptainTwig rotates over to the solo lane to cover for Variety when he's dead. It's been PrettyPriMe getting a couple extra solo waves in mid, and that's why he's got level 12, while Kero's sitting at level 11 despite the 2 kills.
And not just that, but a full stack Doom Orb as well. He's online at 11 minutes in. The boots are about to come up with some penetration penetration more than likely. So his damage will go through the roof if he can confirm that ultimate, which didn't look really great the last 2 times we've seen him use it.
No, but we're going to get to that point where it is going to start to look really good,
yeah.
especially once he gets his penetration online, like you mentioned, and PrettyPriMe kind of recognizing the fact that he is lacking a little bit of damage. Raijin in general feels like he's lacking a little bit of damage in the early game. Since the nerfs, exactly. Not nearly as strong as he used to be. So building Dumorb kind of simulates going back a couple patches. You're feeling like you're doing the kind of damage that you expect to be doing, especially because Raijin was such a top pick for so long, and you play so much of a character like that in scrims and in the SPL. You play it so often that you get so used to the damage that you're doing. It's such a feel sort of thing that going Dumorb here makes PrettyPriMe probably feel a little bit more comfortable.
And we talk about Raijin a little bit more though as well. I mean, we've seen the pro team still go back to it in Group A and Group B, but it's not had the greatest of records so far. Yet still people invest in, they still feel it's useful.
I've seen a lot more success out of gods like Agni, Isis, Scylla gonna be now start to be played a lot here in Group C. I expect to see some good success out of her as well as like characters like Jing mid. I mean, we saw Xeno have some really underwhelming games on Raijin and then look great on a character like Jing. Now that's just Xeno playing what Xeno likes to play, but overall, these off-meta picks seem to be doing a little bit better than Raijin in
Hold
the mid
the
lane.
phone, look at the pressure. Variety's gone to Zyrhoes here. Zyrhoes has his TP up, as does Variety. Nobody actually forced back to base there, but left-hand side, a good dunk comes in. Repikas in trouble, gonna get hit by the drums of war. I'm a monster connects, but it's not enough to get a kill.
EmilZy gonna fall here as well. PANDALIKE just breathing onto him, but it's gonna be traded out. PrettyPriMe, here's the rotation from Zyrhoes. Has to use Purification and jumps away. Kero's alive with 1 HP.
Yeah, Variety tries to help out his team instead, and PANDALIKE juking out, looking for the leap over. Gets away. Nick of time. PrettyPriMe now focusing on to Zyrhoes, who's quite tanky and gonna eat a lot from Raiju there. Now Zyrhoes in a world of hurt as Twig has stayed around to help clean up. Once again, mid-game kicks in, and all of a sudden, Obey pick up the pace and win a team fight.
3-for-0 in favor of Obey, and all of a sudden, they're in the lead in the kill department. 13 minutes, like you mentioned. As soon as Obey starts to get some damage online, they start to win these team fights. I'm going to be very interested, looking at the big picture already here, because it just popped to my mind.
Yeah.
We saw Energy run this pure early game composition in game 1 and just dominate Cringe Crew. If Obey is looking this weak in the early game, they're going to have to fix that, because if we see Energy pull out a similar composition, Obey's not going to get to that mid game in a spot where they can win team fights.
It's true, but would Obey craft this kind of composition up against a team that went for the early game? That's the question, I guess. Maybe they'll change things up a little bit just to make sure they don't have that issue in the early stages.
I mean, this composition in the early game isn't bad. It's not the best early game composition by any means, but overall, it's pretty strong, and they still just weren't, you know, we saw some ultimates off the mark, not really kind of overestimating their damage overall and not looking quite as comfortable, but we both mentioned now, as soon as they get into these mid-game, they look very, very comfortable.
Well, Variety's still over on the left-hand side here. I guess the Golf here is a real focal point right now, but once again, Variety going to lose another wave of farm on the right-hand side by choosing to elect to come back to the left.
Gonna miss 2 to 3 minions here underneath the tower, like you mentioned, and we see the gold lead still in his favor, though. For some reason, it's been Zyrhoes pushed under tower. We haven't been able to watch a whole lot of that, you know, lane-to-lane sort of matchup, and I don't really understand. On paper, that really should be in Zyrhoes' favor, but it's been Variety pushing him under tower, and whenever you've got 100 gold lead, that means you can miss 2 to 3 melee minions and not worry about it.
Is that the build decision then? Because this Stone of Gaia, yeah, he's staying alive there, but he's taking a lot of poke, which is forcing him back anyway. Whereas Variety, gone for the Breastplate of Valor, pretty standard there up against a physical in lane, and now investing into some more magical damage as well. Meanwhile, what have we got in Cringe Crew, you know, in Zyrhoes? Not that much.
No protections whatsoever, except for the 10 now for each from that starting of the cloak. So overall, you're right. Maybe that is the difference. That Sickening Strike going to help out with the poke. The Tail Whip does a lot more damage than you expect at this point in the game. Should be maxed right around now.
Then again, I mean, you are as a Sobek, and it's going to be hard to kill a Sobek anyway. Even if you are Erlang Shen, bringing down a Sobek is not an easy task. So maybe you play for the mid to late game.
Exactly. You could definitely look to be rotating, but if you're going to be doing that, you have to be able to get lane pressure and then make the impact of the team fights before Variety is able to get there. But he's been the one under tower. I think the Pestilence would have given him some extra protection against Variety in general, as well as reduce the healing from that Sickening Strike, allowing you to kind of bully him out of lane a little bit easier.
Well, Ataraxia, you can see that he's continuing to farm, but has Chins online, working towards Titan's Bane next. Little bit ahead in build over Shaggyshenk here, who I just think hasn't returned to base yet. Actually has more gold than that out of Ataraxia, but it looks like they're trying to force this Gold Fury.
Wrath is available here for PandaLike. EmilZy doesn't want to give it up.
Fields of Love. It's going to connect as well. Gold Fury goes to Cringe Crew. The Crush hit 4 targets there as well. EmilZy still available, but Twig wants to go in.
He wants to go in onto Shaggyshenk, but he misses the ultimate. It immediately disengages. Zyrhoes teleporting in. They want to force this fight.
Yeah, they're going to try and force something, but I don't know really where they can force anything. I would have rather seen Zyrhoes stay in the right-hand side there. They got the Gold Fury. They could have taken a tier 1 tower as well, and it would have worked out all good for them, but ooh, I thought Repi was going to go for that then for a second.
He wanted to. Kero wasn't anywhere near him, though, so the follow-up damage wasn't going to be there. You're right. Zyrhoes probably should have stayed on that right-hand side.
Probably
that would
worried
have been a huge win overall for them.
Probably worried about variety, I guess, more than anything. Like, he made the teleport over as well. He's a little bit worried about his team getting wiped there and losing overall for a tier 1 tower in the right. Meanwhile, mid lane.
Variety going up into the sky. Kero is there now, but not enough damage. Look at how tanky that. Oh, never mind.
The
He's
Crush
dead.
was still up. Don't worry about it. He was rooted in place straight afterwards. Kero has that combo down perfectly. If he has the Crush available, he'll throw it down at the moment Nijar takes him to the sky. By the time it casts, the detonation happens as he lands, as the Armor Monster hits. And if not, Armor Monster, root, Crush. Jobs are good, and let's get a tier 1 tower.
When you can have a sort of setup composition like this and you're playing Scylla, you just get to sit back, land damage ultimates that'll do 900 damage,
even
and
you
feel
could hit those.
Even I could hit those, man.
That's saying something,
That's
man.
saying a lot, and it feels really, really good. You see Kero with every single kill on the side of Cringe Crew, and that's perfect. That's why you draft this sort of composition. You want to set up for that Crush, for the Sikkim, for the I'm a Monster. And we haven't even seen Zyrhoes come in and make a rotation that's really impacted the setup for him. He's going to get even more setup in the 5v5 than he has in the 4v4.
Well, it's 3-3 right now. Obviously, Obey won game 1. Cringe Crew looking to answer back. They did that against the world champions Energy earlier on. And right now against Obey, they're in a fantastic position as well, aggro.
Sitting up about 3,000 gold right now. And like I mentioned, if you have 3 kills, who do I want to give those 3 kills to in the early game? Scylla, 100%.
Maybe Nijar.
No, I'd rather have it on the Scylla.
Maybe Cupid.
Nope, rather have it on the Scylla.
Really? Over all those, it's all on Scylla.
All on Scylla because I'm very biased and I want to do the most damage. But
That's
you just
okay.
want to get the 100-0 potential in the mid game. Now that once he finishes that Obsidian Shard, he's going to be able to just explode PrettyPriMe, and those 50 Doom Orb stacks aren't going to matter.
Well, we didn't speak about it yet, but Kero has picked up the blink on Scylla. He's done this multiple times. It's very risk-reward, though, and it's a lot of responsibility for EmilZy here from my point of view, that if Kero does blink in and he messes it up, he needs the shields and peel from Geb to get her out of that dangerous situation. I think it's risky, but it does provide another engage and another threat.
This is another mid laner that seems to like playing Blink. We saw Xeno play Blink Agni during Group B. It's just some weird stuff.
The first person I ever saw do it was PrettyPriMe back in the day. PrettyPriMe was one of the proponents of it on ISIS of all things. ISIS.
I don't know. My positioning's so bad, I feel like I need the Sanctuary, but being able to stay so far back. So what you can do is you can just stay so far back that you won't get hit by anything. Repikas can take someone up into the sky, and then you blink in and finish up without being too far away.
Bit of pressure on EmilZy there, but look how little damage he actually did there onto him. Meanwhile, Ataraxia did get hit by that sash, but the immunity frames from the airstrike will get him away from the danger.
CaptainTwig going up into the sky. PandaLike looks like he wants to force the fight. Variety plucks the wrong target. He's CC immune, brother.
They really want Kero, and they were going to get Kero. PandaLike gets credit for the kill. Meanwhile, in the back, Zyrhoes has made a rotation, but Zyrhoes is under pressure. Trying to fall back to his team. The drums from Prime, not on the mark again. Good shield coming out from EmilZy, but Zyrhoes still trying to get the heal off. Thunder crashing from PrettyPriMe. He wants the kill, and he'll get the kill as well.
Is so close to getting that heal off. The ultimate, the first 3 shots from PrettyPriMe completely whiff, but then he gets some setup from PandaLike, able to taunt him back in, bring Zyrhoes back in, and that's what you want to do. Whenever someone has all the kills on the team, yeah, it's great. They've got a ton of farm, but you've got a big old target on your back. Kero runs the wrong way, goes to the left side of the Gold Fury pit instead of around the front side where the rest of his team was. No one's able to peel for him, and without that Sanctuary, he purifies away early, then gets double tapped, can't survive the spin to win.
And what are they going to lose? They're going to lose 2 towers in the mid lane. The tier 1 falls, the tier 2 falls, and let's go to the graphs and you'll see exactly what this just did to the state of the game.
Unbelievable. This is 2 games in a row that Cringe Crew lose 1 fight, make one.
It's 2 times in the game as well.
Yeah, exactly. 1 poor decision, and it all comes crashing down immediately. That lead that they had worked so hard to earn, now sitting basically even. In both late games, we talked about the potential for Cringe Crew in the late game. The late game potential for Obey is also excellent. We saw how much Ataraxia was able to do with this crit build that he's been going for, and I wanted to touch on this. Ataraxia always builds weird stuff. I mean, we talked about it with him on our podcast. He was awesome talking about all that kind of weird stuff. And we saw him, we talked about why no one picked up Poison Star, but in that last game, he was finishing Poison Star towards the end of that game. He'd already finished the Wind Demon like he has right now. He's got this first crit item. Next, he went Deathbringer in the last game. I assume he'll do the same here. And you can do this with Jing Wei because that explosive bolt adds so much critical strike to your auto attacks. You get
automatic crit in your kit is very important. Artemis as well is one that could look for it, although you'd like other things.
You could, but I mean, a lot of the time we've seen the penetration builds overall from ADCs, but except for on Jing Wei and on...
Hold that thought. Twig is in the sky right now as the hammer came down onto Repikas. Repikas did use his purification and get the Geb shield too. The crush was eaten there by PANDALIKE, but advantage at the Gold Fury pit now for Obey. Let's listen into the Steel Series listening of Obey as they look at the Gold Fury.
To engage on it.
Okay, reset it, I'm going in.
Yeah.
I'm talking to
Nice.
I'm going
Okay, I'm with you.
Still back, still ulti. I'm boosting you, Nate. Boosting you.
Just shoot, Twig, just shoot.
Nice.
Fuck, so far. I need to go here, Oh shit, dude. I'm backing. Miss my double tap. Run away from this one. They're gonna get it, I guess. What did they use?
Nice beats.
They used... Do we need to give this up?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm too low.
Do you have ult? No.
I think Nash is still assault.
Get out, guys, get out.
Yeah, Nash
I'm back now.
Back off. How do we do? Okay, no problem. Did Harry get combo?
Well, we saw the fight there, and that's the first time we listened to Obey's comms today, Aggro. We listened to Cringe Crews early on in Game 1. Both DCs are very calm on the comms, even when they're losing or winning, quite clearly, but mistakes were made by Obey.
Mistakes were made specifically by CaptainTwig dashing in there. It would have been a really hot double tap,
yeah, it would.
But it didn't happen, and then he gets killed for free. You heard him immediately. That was the sound of regret as soon as that happened. Gets bursted by that Scylla, and Scylla was able to get a lot of her damage off there. PrettyPriMe, though, did a ton of damage with Tycho drums. That's a really good sign for Obey going forward in these team fights, because unlike I'm a Monster that really realistically should never hit more than one target if you're spacing correctly in your team fights, that Tycho drums is huge, and it's going to be able to get real through that team fight very, very easily and put out a ton of damage. Kero has to be careful because he took 2 shots from that Tycho drum, just straight damage while he was up in that ultimate, and it brought him down to half health. He's going to be the target moving forward because without Sanctuary, if they can blow that purification, he's going to get taunted with those Tycho drums. He's going to take the damage. He's got to be very, very careful. Going for this blink, like you mentioned, high risk, high reward. Really, really, really high risk, though, is my opinion, and he's got to be very careful about his position.
I mean, if he can buy himself a couple of seconds, though, he can use it to escape as well. It's a little bit more delayed than he used to be in the combat blink days. Those were the old days there, but he's 5-5 in this one. This game's going a little bit different. The story's kind of changed now. It was always Obey come back in the mid game, and then Cringe Crew had no answer. Well, now Cringe Crew keep taking the win, getting an advantage, and then losing it again.
This is very topsy-turvy is the word I want to use right now. Yeah, topsy-turvy this game, just really, really back and forth. And that's the sort of volatile nature that you have with a character like Scylla, because if she can make the plays, she can hit the ultimates, it's going to look really, really good for your squad. But if she's able to get picked off, like we saw on the Gold Fury side, it kind of all falls apart.
That's it, getting picked off, where you just saw how quickly we saw Variety fall back there. There's a whole rotation of Cringe Crews coming to the right-hand side. They've left Ataraxia alone on the left, but so pushed up under his tier 2, so he's going to take a little bit of time before he can get for that tier 1 on the left-hand side to answer there. So at the moment, Cringe Crew, it looks like they're just trying to group up and look for picks now, Aggro.
I'm totally fine with that. You see the relics on the side of Obey just now becoming available, so they're going to be able to, they were looking for them while they were down.
Well, a bit of a miscommunication there from Obey. You saw the pull get used by Variety and PANDALIKE use the hammer. And it's actually Variety under pressure here as well, forced to use the ultimate, and a sprint comes out because Twig has now turned up.
Twig is here, but what's he going to do? No damage available for him overall. Dash in by Variety. He's not going to be good. And he gets
the crush is down. Variety's dead. Next up on the list is Zyrhoes. Drums of war coming through, but not enough from Prime. EmilZy is very, very low on the front side. He has to retreat as well. Repikas took a lot of poke, and ult spot misses his target, so he eats it as well. Next up is Ataraxia. Heart bombs for days from Shaggyshenk, but Shaggyshenk dashed in for the kill. He's going to fall too now. Shield from Gebu still in this fight will not save the life as PrettyPriMe gets a double. Kero still there, going to get a crush off, but unluckily enough, PANDALIKE was not tanking the tower, and a few members, not many, survived from each team.
PrettyPriMe just carried that fight entirely for Obey. All of the damage was done by PrettyPriMe there. We see him pick up the double kill, really putting in work with this Doom Orb Raijin. Also sanctuaried out the I'm a Monster from Kero perfectly, able to survive just long enough, and it's really been the story of these two mid laners there.
Well, before the game started, we looked at the mid laners, PrettyPriMe and Kero, and you can see one of the reasons why we were focusing on them coming into this. They are both big-time players, and when they got the gods that they want, they can really perform. Kero, once again in the online stage, is stepping up once more.
Just doing everything he can, still with 4 kills, has that 1 death. CaptainTwig gonna be able to steal away the speed buff. The hammer is interrupted. Is Kero gonna be able to catch up to him here?
But the knockup's down as well, so he should be okay here between the two of them. Scylla might be able to get in range, but no blink available, so it'll be a little bit more difficult right now for Kero.
If only that blink was up. That was the time for the blink to shine.
Yep.
Looking at CaptainTwig's build right now, it looks like he did go into that spectral armor. We talked about this with Nika a little bit. He likes how much protection it is. It's a cheap item overall, as well as you get your abilities back. You accelerate your cooldowns whenever you use a relic. So if he goes in aggressively, uses that shell, his wall's back up or his hammer's back up. Uses the purification to get out of a root, and then he can hammer away easily.
Well, this is because Twig is an old school player as well. He was around in the days when purification used to be called beads, purification beads. What they used to do is reset the cooldown at max level or lower the cooldown by 3 seconds. It's basically what this ability does.
And now he's looking for Shaggyshenk, use the purification, and now, but it's Repikas he lands on. Great Geb shield, gonna keep him alive for now.
Twig's dead, the heart bomb came through. Repi with the credit for the kill. Prime though gets a big time double with that ultimate and bravely rolls away, does EmilZy.
Variety is just diving a middle Phoenix right now, looking for Kero. He's gonna be able to pick him up. What is happening? It's just a spread out fight.
It's a spread out fight that's going in Obey's favor. Cringe Crew are looking to defend their Phoenix now. The tier 2 tower that fell earlier is now allowing Obey to go aggressive. They pick 3 kills, and it looks like they're going for the Fire Giant.
Using the sprint to just get wherever they want to go faster. It is going to be the Fire Giant they're looking at. Erlang knows, Zyrhoes understands that this is happening, but is he going to be able to stop it?
I think this is wise from Zyrhoes, though. He's got TP still, so he can go in, take a whole round of damage, get out again, TP it again. But he's got to go in earlier. It looks like that he doesn't want to do that. They may just be surrendering this Fire Giant.
Now, topsy-turvy is the word for sure. Obey is going to take the lead with this Fire Giant. You saw CaptainTwig there use the wall, blow the purification from Shaggyshenk immediately.
Yep.
That forced Repikas to step up and help out his hunter. We saw CaptainTwig go up into the sky. You assume he's going for Shaggyshenk, but the purification from Repikas was still down. Yeah, they turn around and kill CaptainTwig, but Ataraxia talks about it all the time. CaptainTwig is willing to die to win the team fight, and he set up PrettyPriMe perfectly there through the wall with the Drums of War. Awesome play from the mid and jungle.
And the jungler for CaptainTwig here for Obey. I mean, he's had a rough, weird couple of years overall. He was a fantastic performer. He's a mid laner on the side of SK Gaming and Fnatic, but then the roster changes, well, the switch-ups that saw him end up in the jungle, and Zyrhoes, who's against him here today, went to the mid lane instead. And because of that, he just never really found the form. He couldn't find the playstyle that suited the team, or the team didn't find the playstyle they wanted out of him. He's found now that he can do his playstyle on a team that is very comfortable with it and make it work to their advantage.
Obey really reminds me, I mentioned Eager earlier, but overall as a team, they remind me of Luminosity more than anyone else. You have the star players like a PrettyPriMe, like an Ataraxia can be in the later stages sometimes, and like CaptainTwig, Variety, a big player as well who can make a name for himself overall, but they just work as a unit. They understand their roles, they understand what they need to do to make the team succeed, and a lot of the time, that's PANDALIKE and CaptainTwig dying so that their team can push the advantage.
Well, here we go. Blink calculates him straight off from EmilZy to zone him back. The front line of Obey, though, going very deep to keep them busy, but in the sky is Thor, looking to come down, but where will the target be? It's onto the Scylla, who uses the purification. Drums of War wasted by Prime as the re-engage happens.
Repikas was looking for the dash, but huge Fields of Love is going to hit 4 here. Ataraxia is mez. Variety is falling very low. Zero's going to be able to pick him up.
And now the engagement continues as the wall comes out, and the shield is good for Repikas. Repikas will not get a kill. Ataraxia's crits are better than yours, and he's like, get the Phoenix too.
PrettyPriMe just kind of floats up into the sky a little bit right as the ultimate, the Windfire Wheels, was fired by Repikas. He gets crit down by Ataraxia with that Deathbringer, like we mentioned. The tier 2 goes down. Now CaptainTwig gets rooted out, but Kero's not close enough to follow up.
Yeah, a little bit risky going for this Phoenix. Now Twig's in trouble. Hammer Monsters available, will not hit home. Instead, Ataraxia's backing, but he gets hit by the crush. He didn't expect Kero to have that, and now Cringe Crew will hold their base.
We saw that it was Repikas get baited by Shaggyshenk earlier in that fight for Cringe Crew, but that time it's Ataraxia gets baited by CaptainTwig, steps up to help him. I'm Monster was used by Kero, but the sprint allowed CaptainTwig to get out of range in time, but Ataraxia never saw the crush coming. We talk about it all the time. Even if you don't hit the I'm a Monster, that crush is going to feel like an ultimate, basically. It does that much damage.
So back to the tier 2 tower fight overall there. We saw EmilZy engage originally on the Geb. He gets a great Cataclysm off as the front line of Obey dive deep to the back. Then it's all about the initiation of CaptainTwig coming down, but he doesn't manage to get any follow-up because things were already wasted. And then it's Cringe Crew who assault again, but they walk straight into the crit damage and the power of PrettyPriMe, who still have Percussive Storm.
That was kind of a microcosm of this entire game. It looked like it was going to be a great fight for Cringe Crew because PrettyPriMe wastes the ultimate. CaptainTwig just too far away, didn't land the right time overall. And then you saw, like you mentioned, the blink in from EmilZy blows the purification from Ataraxia immediately. And then in the middle of that fight, we see Repikas hit the sash onto Ataraxia, but not ult. He was dead. If he uses that ultimate there, the setup's going to be there to finish off Ataraxia. And it ends up coming back to haunt Repikas because Ataraxia is the one that ends up killing him.
With the crits.
Exactly. So
things.
I don't know if it was a miscommunication, maybe because there's a lot of yelling in those sorts of team fights. Repikas didn't know that the purification was down on Ataraxia from that initiation from EmilZy. But overall, tough fight over.
Well, there is benefits here because the fact is the Fire Giant still is down and they didn't really get a Phoenix out of that one either. So Cringe Crew holding their base for this next Fire Giant is definitely a positive for them. They do not have a Wrath on their roster though, so they've got to be careful. It's Kero over the back. Did he a double tap? PANDALIKE down to half health and he's crippled in place. PANDALIKE could be in trouble, but look at the back. Zyrhoes is being pressured instead. He's got the heals online. The shield comes out, drums a war over the wall. Not going to kill Zyrhoes. Zyrhoes duke it out. He gets a bit of a heal, bit of a shield, but it's still not enough.
PrettyPriMe actually gets a kill, but then Variety falls to Shaggyshenk. PANDALIKE is so low. Shaggyshenk gets the double kill, and CaptainTwig gonna finish off 3 kills there for 1. PANDALIKE kind of baited the initiation from Cringe Crew by jumping in and spam taunting. They took the bait, but they win the fight.
And they do, and now it's the boys of Obey on the defensive. The damage dealers have to fall back. Ataraxia can get back in time, but he can't defend alone. I like Prime pushing mid lane in because he realizes they can't stop a tier 2, but they have to stop the Phoenix.
They could go for the Phoenix here, or we could see
Fire
Cringe
Giant?
Crew turn around and look at that Fire Giant going to be spawning in 2 seconds, but instead it is going to be this right Phoenix siege.
20 seconds plus on 2 of the players of Obey here, so it's a 2 versus 4 for now. Only 1 ultimate up, which is EmilZy. He doesn't have Blink though, so would have to get in range to do that Cataclysm. The Phoenix falls, and Cringe Crew fall back, more than likely, like you said, for the Fire Giant.
Just want to make sure that they aren't losing any members there, because if those 2 die, Ataraxia and PrettyPriMe, that is a free Fire Giant for Cringe Crew. Now they have to worry about it because Variety does have the teleport, and we see that Ataraxia and PrettyPriMe still completely full health. We'll have to see what is the cooldown on PrettyPrime's ultimate, because that's going to be a big factor here.
PrettyPrime's ultimate is 10 seconds away, but is it 10 seconds and the Fire Giant goes down? Variety on the backside is coming in deep as quick as he can, but they do have a Wrath, remember. Cringe Crew get the Fire Giant, and now Variety's going to fall down again. Cringe Crew take out Ataraxia as well. Repikas with a big time ult. Twig trying to answer back on Kero. I don't think that's even going to matter.
Great
but Jeb's going
shield.
to deny it anyway with a shield and the crush return damage, and EmilZy's in hand will bring him down. 3 dead on the side of Obey, and a Fire Giant to Cringe Crew.
3 dead, and no one's respawning for 40+ seconds right now. This is a huge moment for Cringe Crew.
1-1.
Plus the hearts are going to be able to heal Kero up. This is going to be a split, it looks like, here in set 2.
Well, PANDALIKE and PrettyPriMe. PrettyPriMe, I've said his name so many times on defense where he's managed to hold on. He may still be able to hold on to this here. Let's find out. The drums of war coming out here, the shield as well. But it's too little, too late by the looks of it. He will manage to pick up Shaggyshenk eventually here, but it's not enough. And Cringe Crew, again in game 2, answer back and find a split.
So it all comes down to PANDALIKE jumping over the wall and taunting a little bit underneath that tier 2 tower. That was the bait that they were trying to force that fight, but it went entirely in Cringe Crew's favor, and after that, it was all them.
I am not gonna lie, like for a day 1 setup for Cringe Crew, take into account they had to face the world champions and Obey. They have taken games off energy before, but they're still the world champions, right? And then game 2, you walk into Obey, who beat them regularly in the online season. It's a very difficult team to perform against. They lose both the first games against both of them too, and then still come back and find a win.
I love the resiliency out of Cringe Crew right now, just showing that they aren't afraid to play whatever they want to play. It doesn't matter how badly we lose game 1. Both times, really convincing performances from both Energy and Obey in game 1. but then it's Cringe Crew coming back and looking really strong.
Right, I mean, this is just the start of the day. Obviously, that's the day done for Cringe Crew, but now Cyclone would have been sat watching these games, and they've got a double header themselves now. I wonder how they're going to do up against the two teams.
I mean, this is going to be crazy. This opens up the group so much for the rest of the weekend, really, because you expect, you know, either EmilZy or Obey is going to come out of one of these sets with 3 points, but instead it's Cringe Crew on top with 2, and then EmilZy and Obey both with 1. I know we're only 2 sets in, but just the potential points differential now is much smaller.
I expected this day would be a blowout. This group would be a blowout. It would be Obey and EmilZy taking it to the top overall and just walking the way through. Not to be, shockingly enough, that's what groups do. Eftar and the analysts talked about that game.
Well, Cringe Crew take their second game, and as we are here, presented by SteelSeries, the official gaming peripherals of hi-rez esports. They are certainly a big part of what our players have been able to do, and a certainly big part of what we've been able to watch Cringe Crew do is collect 2 points. They didn't even have to pass go. The team on top right here, 2. Everybody else got 1, except for, well, Cyclone. They've yet to play.
We got time. We got time. Easy for all these teams. You know, what are they doing out there? We got this.
It's just EmilZy, right? No big deal.
Who are they?
But on a serious note, taking a look towards what Cringe Crew has been able to do. Fantastic performances, and you know, this is the point that I've been trying to drill home the entire time. Look, when it comes to game 1, they don't come out of the gate swinging, but they're able to make those adaptations.
We just need to see them be the second pick more often, because clearly when they dictated strategy in game number 1, it hasn't really been working out for them. But game number 2 was just amazing back and forth action. We saw Cringe Crew kind of control the early pace of the game between the Naja Scylla combo. Kind of fell off in the later stages, but miraculous comeback from them.
I mean, it just worked out exactly when it needed to, and you know, when it comes down to it, like we said, they make the changes and they make the adaptations, and that's really where it counts. Take a look at what Shaggyshenk was able to do here for this game, though. Sometimes you just need to strap up and get ready and really lean on that hunter, and that's something that Shaggyshenk has been able to do a number of times for Cringe Crew.
He was able to really control the early laning phase against Ataraxia, and in these gold fears, this is the first gold fear that was actually stolen away by Cringe Crew. And on top of that, I think they traded out 1 for 1. They got a tier 1 mid tower, and it was all because of that huge AoE cripple.
And that's what I was talking about heading into this one. The objective secured of Cupid is one of the things that is often overlooked here, and we got to see that, you know, work out just fantastically right there. You can see the aggression on CaptainTwig right here is where he just gets toasted. Honestly, Hazer and I were watching it, and we both kind of just held our heads there.
Yeah, I'd just been complimenting Twig on his Thor mechanics a few seconds earlier, and then he comes in, he misses the double tap, and he teleports in and dies. I felt a bit bad, but you know, these things happen. You still played well on that Thor, I think, anyway.
He certainly played it. Mid laner, PrettyPriMe looked pretty strong, but of course, crossed away. It was all about the jungle helping him set up. Repikas looked very strong, another member of the Titan Fragment crew. Repikas here for Cringe Crew, just making it happen. Ataraxia getting taken to the sky.
That was the clutch, crucial pickoff that Cringe Crew really needed to close out the game there. They got the fire shot, they got that first pick, and then they were able to close out the game.
As I said, as this one goes down, Cringe Crew's able to add another point to their systems. They've got 2 in total. They're on top. Obey with 1, EmilZy with another, and a big old goose egg for Hazer's Cyclone GG.
There's still plenty of time for us to win. These teams just need to keep splaying. We'll 2-0 them all, and they'll be fine. We'll qualify Super Regionals. I'll get another free holiday. Happy days.
Like, we have EmilZy and then Obey coming up for you guys in just a little bit. And for Obey, they were able to take game number 1. Unfortunately for them and their fans, unable to really tie it all together for the entire set. However, we do have on hand our resident mid laner. It's PrettyPriMe, and he's standing next to Mr. Adonis.
Hey, what's going on, Prime? Rough game 2 for you. Let's talk about a little bit coming into this LAN. How prepared did you guys head into this one? Obviously against EmilZy, but did you prepare the same amount for Cringe Crew?
Yeah, I'd say we prepare the same amount against every team. Like, we just try to be on top of our game, basically. Like, we don't have that much special stuff planned out. Like, we don't got a lot of cheats. We just want to play solid against every team.
Okay, talk to me about game 1. What went so right for you? You know, we saw the Raw really utilizing that healing strategy. Was that your goal going into that, to just, you know, play around you?
Yeah, like when you have a Raw on the team, you kind of have to play around it. Like, you need to disengage and stuff over and over again.
And then game 2 didn't go the same. You had a phenomenal performance on Raijin, though. What was the main issue we saw? Because it was a very back and forth match.
We were doing pretty good, you know. I got kind of big. With being big, it comes a lot of responsibility, and I fucked up like 2 fights. Oh, I did pretty poorly. 2 fights in a row.
Pretty poorly, not pretty prime. I hope it's not the same for the rest of the tournament.
No.
What are your expectations, though, heading into day 2? You guys are done. What are you guys going to be preparing for tomorrow?
I don't know. Just gonna rewatch like all the games and just see what we did wrong, because I did some rather bad stuff in the second game.
I think you'll be a lot better. Before we let you guys go, though, remember, make sure to follow us on hi-rez TV, faceit.com as well. You can play with the pros like this guy sometimes, but we're going to let you go on a quick break. We have 2 more sets for you up next.
Sweet.
Superstar.